Hello, friends. Every person wants that other people like him, and he wants to become a more successful person than others. Friends, most of the people are not successful because they are talented or smart, but the most important reason for their success is their social skills, and people have to liking them. Because the fact is that most of the people do not function properly in their relationship, friendship, or business. Instead, some people do not even like to see the face of the person whom they do not like at all. So today I will share with you 4 rules. After implementing it in your life, people will start liking you, and also your social skills will also improve. So let's start. Rule number 1. Easily become a good conversionist. Once, the New York Telephone Company had to deal with a very harsh and rude customer who would always call the company and say bad things to them and never pay the bill properly. Not only this, but in the end, customer filed many cases against the telephone company. After facing so many problems, the company, after finally, asked its most experienced troubleshooter, Larry, to handle the situation, who was also a student of Carnegie. Which Larry goes and meets the customer and listens to his problems with full attention and listens to the customer at every point. The customer talks to him angrily for about 3 hours. Yet, Larry does not utter a single word in defense of the company, and later, both of them left. Again, Larry met the customer for the second time, and then listened carefully to the problems of that customer. Then the same thing was repeated in the 3rd interview. And when the 4th interview took place, finally the Larry makes customer a chartered member of his particular organization, which he calls Telephone Subscriber Protective Association. He was the only lifelong member of that particular organization. Larry listened and understood the customer without saying a word or interrupting him, due to which the customer's anger subsided and he became friends with Larry, after which he left his not only withdrew all the complaints, but also made proper payment of all his unpaid bills. The client in this story thought of himself as a protector fighting on behalf of others, but really just wanted a listener who would listen to him and understand his problems, which is what Larry did it well most of the time. If you want people to like you, let the other person talk more and encourage them to say more about themselves. Remember, the more you talk about the person, the more important that conversation will be to them. Rule number 1, be a good listener and allow and encourage other people to talk about themselves. Rule number 2, never do this and avoid trouble. Andrew Carnegie, who was one of the richest men of his time, he was known as a king in the steel industry, not because he was very knowledgeable about steel or he was very smart. In fact, many people under him used to work who were more knowledgeable and educated than him. Here the author says the important reason for Andrew's success was his ability to handle and deal with other people, and his social skills were also good. Example, Carnegie once wanted to sell his rails, which were made of steel, to the Pennsylvania Railroad. He couldn't figure out how he could sell his steel. So what he did was he opened a steel factory in a place called Pittsburgh and named that factory Edgar Thomson Steel Works. Why? Since Edgar Thomson was the president of the Pennsylvania Railroad, guess which company Edgar bought the steel from? Yes, you're guessing right. Edgar happily bought steel rails from the factory that bears his name was kept, and the company was of Carnegie. Friends, in today's time, for any person, his name is the sweetest sound of any language. Therefore, we should make some efforts to remember him. Name, this thing will not only make you likable, but will also help you in growing your business and dealing with others. So rule number 2 is to always remember people's names. Rule number 3, how to interest people. Edward Killiff was an active member of the Boy Scout group. Boy Scout is an organization where training is provided to young boys, such as survival skills, leadership skills, etc., and teaches many good things to boys. That's why Edward wanted at least one boy from the group to participate in the Boy Scout program which will be in Europe. Money was short, so Edward considered talking to the president of a corporation to fund the trip. Before the meeting, Edwards had done research about the president, which led him to learn that once the president wrote a check for $1 million after the check was canceled, he framed that check and put it on the wall because it was a big deal. At that time, Edward found this very interesting, so as soon as he met the president, he requested the president to show him the check which he had framed. After seeing the check, Edward said that, "I have never seen such a big check in my entire life, and I don't know if anyone has done anything like this or not." Then Edward asked the whole story of check from the president. Both of them talked about it a lot. However, during all this conversation, Edward did not say a single word about the Boy Scouts. After some time, the president himself asked Edward, "Sorry, I forgot to ask you the reason for which you had come to meet me." Then Edward told him the reason and all the requirements. After hearing this, the president not only gave Edward the funds for one boy, but also gave him a loan of $1,000 for 5 more boys, and also asked him to stay in Europe for 7 weeks. And he gave Edward his branch president's number so that he can contact them for any needs. And the president even met him personally in Europe, after which he took Edward and all the boys to Paris. Edward said that all these incredible things happened because he did not discuss things that were important and beneficial to him. All these things happened because he talked about things that were important and interesting to the president. So, if you want people to like you, try to understand what is interesting and important to the other person. This will make you a gentleman. So, rule number 3 is to talk in terms of other people's interest. Rule number 4, how to make people like you. One day, Dale Carnegie, while waiting in line at the post office, noticed that a clerk working in the post office always worked in a sad mood and had a fake smile on his face, and he was not happy or satisfied with his work. Then Carnegie decided that he would make her feel good and happy. Carnegie knew that the simplest way to make someone feel good is to notice something about them and praise them for that thing. This is usually difficult to do when you don't know the person well, but in this situation, Carnegie noticed something immediately, so as he approached the counter to have his letter weighed. Then Carnegie excitedly told the clerk, "I wish I had hair like yours." After hearing this, the clerk said, "No," with a big smile, and said, "It's not that good now. It was much better before." Carnegie replied, "Yes, maybe, but it still looks great." After which the clerk felt very happy, and Carnegie also felt happy seeing the clerk happy. After this, whenever the writer goes to the post office, the clerk always gives a genuine and happy smile to the writer. Through this, the mood of both the writer and the clerk becomes happy and cheerful. All this happened just because of a simple and genuine appreciation. Friends, every person thinks that they are better in one thing than others, and more special and important than others. If you notice that one thing which is special in them and appreciate it truly, then definitely that person will like you, because it will make that person feel important and special. All the points I have mentioned earlier are somehow related to this point, like remembering names, listening to them properly, letting others speak more, talking to them about their interest, remembering birthdays. All these things make people feel important and special. So, if you want people to like you, the first thing you need to do is really start liking them and make them feel important and special. This is the most powerful technique. It will not only make the other person happy, but also make you feel good. So, rule number 4, make others feel important. If you want to learn this topic in more detail, you can go to the description below, and you can buy the book with the help of the link given in the description.